Thursday. Last night we sat on the piazza, the Hayes woman, Lolita, and I. Warm dusk had deepened into amorous darkness. The old girl had finished relating in great detail the plot of a movie she and Elle had seen sometime in the winter. The boxer had fallen extremely low when he met the good old priest who had been a boxer himself in his robust youth and could still slug a sinner. We sat on cushions heaped on the floor, and Elle was between the woman and me. She had squeezed herself in, the pet. In my turn, I launched upon a hilarious account of my Arctic adventures. The muse of invention handed me a rifle, and I shot a white bear, who sat down and said, "Ah!" All the while I was acutely aware of Elle's nearness, and as I spoke I gestured in the merciful dark, and took advantage of those invisible gestures of mine to touch her hand, her shoulder, and a ballerina of wool and gauze which she played with and kept sticking into my lap. And finally, when I had completely enmeshed my glowing darling in this weave of ethereal caresses, I dared stroke her bare leg along the gooseberry fuzz of her shin, and I chuckled at my own jokes, and trembled, and concealed my tremors, and once or twice felt with my rapid lips the warmth of her hair as I treated her to a quick nuzzling, humorous aside, and caressed her plaything. She too fidgeted a good deal, so that finally her mother told her sharply to quit it, and sent the doll flying into the dark. And I laughed and addressed myself to Hayes across Lo's legs to let my hand creep up my nymphet's thin back and feel her skin through her boy's shirt. But I knew it was all hopeless, and was sick with longing, and my clothes felt miserably tight, and I was almost glad when her mother's quiet voice announced in the dark, "And now we all think that Lo should go to bed." "I think you stink," said Lo. "Which means there will be no picnic tomorrow," said Hayes. "This is a free country," said Lo. When angry Lo with a Bronx cheer had gone, I stayed on from sheer inertia, while Hayes smoked her 10th cigarette of the evening and complained of Lo. She had been spiteful, if you please, at the age of 1, when she used to throw her toys out of her crib so that her poor mother should keep picking them up. The villainous infant. Now at 12 she was a regular pest, said Hayes. All she wanted from life was to be one day a strutting and prancing baton twirler, or a jitterbug. Her grades were poor, but she was better adjusted in her new school than in Piskey. Piskey was the Hayes hometown in the Middle West. The Ramsdale house was her late mother-in-law's. They had moved to Ramsdale less than 2 years ago. Why, was she unhappy there? "Oh," said Hayes, "poor me should know. I went through that when I was a kid. Boys twisting one's arm, banging into one with loads of books, pulling one's hair, hurting one's breasts, flipping one's skirt. Of course, moodiness is a common concomitant of growing up, but Lo exaggerates. Sullen and evasive, rude and defiant. Stuck Viola, an Italian schoolmate, in the seat with a fountain pen. Know what I would like? If you, monsieur, happen to be still here in the fall, I'd ask you to help her with her homework. You seem to know everything. Geography, mathematics, French." "Oh, everything," answered monsieur. "That means," said Hayes quickly, "you'll be here." I wanted to shout that I would stay on eternally if only I could hope to caress now and then my incipient pupil. But I was wary of Hayes. So I just grunted and stretched my limbs non-concomitantly, le mot juste, and presently went up to my room. The woman, however, was evidently not prepared to call it a day. I was already lying upon my cold bed, both hands pressing to my face Lolita's fragrant ghost, when I heard my indefatigable landlady creeping stealthily up to my door to whisper through it, just to make sure, she said, I was through with the Glance and Gulp magazine I had borrowed the other day. From her room, Lo yelled she had it. "We are quite a lending library in this house, thunder of God." Friday. I wonder what my academic publishers would say if I were to quote in my textbook Ronsard's La Vermerette Fente, or Romé Bolot's Un petit mont feutre de mousse délicate, tracé sur le milieu d'un filet d'escarlate, and so forth. I shall probably have another breakdown if I stay any longer in this house under the strain of this intolerable temptation. By the side of my darling, my life, and my bride. Has she already been initiated by Mother Nature to the mystery of the menage? Bloated feeling, the curse of the Irish, falling from the roof, Grandma is visiting. Mr. Uterus, I quote from a girl's magazine, starts to build a thick soft wall on the chance a possible baby may have to be bedded down there. The tiny madman in his padded cell. Incidentally, if I ever commit a serious murder, mark the if, the urge should be something more than the kind of thing that happened to me with Valeria. Carefully mark that then I was rather inept. If and when you wish to sizzle me to death, remember that only a spell of insanity could ever give me the simple energy to be a brute. All this amended, perhaps. Sometimes I attempt to kill in my dreams. But you know what happens? For instance, I hold a gun. For instance, I aim at a bland, quietly interested enemy. Oh, I press the trigger all right, but one bullet after another feebly drops on the floor from the sheepish muzzle. In those dreams my only thought is to conceal the fiasco from my foe, who is slowly growing annoyed. At dinner tonight, the old cat said to me with a sidelong gleam of motherly mockery directed at Lo, I had just been describing in a flippant vein the delightful little toothbrush moustache I had not quite decided to grow. Better don't, if somebody is not to go absolutely doddy. Instantly, Lo pushed her plate of boiled fish away, all but knocking her milk over, and bounced out of the dining room. "Would it bore you very much," quoth Hayes, "to come with us tomorrow for a swim in our glass lake, if Lo apologizes for her manners?" Later, I heard a great banging of doors and other sounds coming from quaking caverns where the two rivals were having a ripping row. She has not apologized. The lake is out. It might have been fun.